Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel, friends. My name is Faded Alien here on YouTube, and in the year of our Lord 2026, I pose a very important question. Is the Labubu trend finally dead? Are they actually laid to rest now? And if so, I'm proposing a final Lafufu video with a twist. So I figured if this was going to be our final Lafufu face-up video, then why not try to use the most amount of detail in the smallest amount of available space, being an entire landscape in the eyeballs of our Lafufu. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into our face up. That being said, I did get our special Lafufu out of box at a smoke shop. Lafufus are not real Labubus, just letting y'all know. That being said, I didn't get to do a grand unboxing, so we're just gonna go ahead and jump into the face up now, and let's get started. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but I'm kind of a Lafufu face-up professional at this point, so now I'm kind of in the routine of wrapping it up with a paper towel and using that to protect the general fur and fuzz from any of our paint or face-up. So while we wrap this Lafufu and prep it for its face up, let's go ahead and go over the materials you're going to need to remove the face, the original eye paint, before we could start our face up. To remove that pesky factory paint, you're going to want to use a lot of cotton swabs and acetone for the face, being the nose, the smile lines, and the teeth. And you're going to want to use repetitive little circular motions to go ahead and accomplish that, but you want to make sure to have that set aside separately from your rubbing alcohol, which you absolutely will need to remove any of that from the original eye paint. Otherwise, it's going to be too stubborn, so I highly recommend getting a separate cup that you can distinguish with and using rubbing alcohol or concentrated alcohol to remove that factory paint. This is typically the shortest part of the face up for me, and after your face looks something like this, it's going to be time to go ahead and remove the eyes. So I'm going to start using a blow dryer after gently washing the face and removing all of that acetone because it can be flammable, heating the vinyl very gently and then popping the eyes out like so.
Oh god. That was fast. That was really, really fast. I was expecting to have to time-lapse that. Okay, cool.
With the eyes out of the face, there's an additional step. We do have to peel the sticker behind the eyes before we can remove the paint, and it's just kind of like a vinyl sticker, so you can go behind it and just gently peel that off, and then you have to do that for both eyeballs. After that step is done, I can then go in with my rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip, separate from the Q-tips we've been using with the acetone, going in smaller circles and continuing to fully remove that factory paint. Once all that paint is gone, we can now add our own Faded Alien touch. Time to make a micro landscape in his eyeballs. Can we pull it off? I'm genuinely curious. Let's get started. Getting into the concept of this piece, I've always seen eyes as not just the windows to the soul, but windows to the world around us, and I wanted to make a whimsical landscape background with a whimsical creature, so I figured adding the whimsy of a beautiful sunset tree-lined landscape featuring a waterfall would be a beautiful incorporation of a landscape and kind of the pastel color features of the special Lafufu with our kind of incorporated landscape detailed idea. I really wanted to push the boundaries of my own artistry and see just how much detail I can really put an impact into such a small canvas, being our little eyeball. That being said, we have less than an inch of space for our viewable canvas, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. I like to use a base of watercolor paper because it's very durable and it's used to taking a lot of layers of paint. Because I'm anticipating not only adding a sunset, a waterfall, a tree line, and textures, I'm gonna need this paint to be a very, very durable base. So I'm gonna use our watercolor and go ahead and start to circle and trace around our eyeball shapes. I decided I was going to make 2 pairs of eyes so that I could be able to pick from the 4 and select the best eyeball pair for the Lafufu. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and start to make our base. I like to use lilac for the base because I feel like it's going to be a very general pastel and very workable as a background. Using my landscape reference photo, I'm going to go ahead and take my red, yellow, blue, and apple tart acrylic paints and lay them out on my paint tray. I'm using a lot of titanium white to make red and blue to mixed lilac median, and this is going to set as our base shade. After letting that shade settle, I tried to make a sky blue, did not like how green that turned out, so made another sky blue as that was setting, and I'm going to start to take that at the top of our eyes there and kind of ombre it down and make our skyline. The next step is going to be focusing on the clouds, so adding a little bit of titanium white to my very small square brush and stippling that through, making tiny, almost what I would with my fan brush for a landscape piece, and just using the same method of fanning and gently blending. taking that down all the way to the bottom and then using various shades of kind of sakura pinks and cherry blossom pinks to add depth to those clouds before taking more of those pinks and cascading that all the way to the bottom. I do continue the same process of shading with pinks, adding more further depth, and then carrying that as we bring it to the bottom of the landscape. A lot of this cloud depth isn't going to be seen because it is later layered with our forest, our rainbow, and our other land feature details. That being said, it's more of peace of mind to know that I have those details there before we go ahead and continue on. But our cloud cover looks beautiful, you guys. Now that we're satisfied with our skyline, it's time to move to our tree line. So I'm going to start to shift focus to our orange acrylic paints and more into our warm tones. So I'm going to start to stipple that, still using the same square tip brush, and start to make our tree line and start to give small implications using multiple shades of yellows, oranges, and reds to do so. I'm going to also start to produce little stems, and I'm going to use a eggplanty kind of shade to start to introduce that here in a moment. But I want to keep the trees very angular, very triangular. So I start to form tiny triangles physically with my brush, and then I taper those down, and that's how I make our tree line. And I continue that pattern until I'm satisfied with the amount of trees, and then I go ahead and focus on adding those eggplant colored tree stems as I further mentioned. This next step is really hard to see because it's going to be that water reflection. We're going to make a lakefront, so I'm going to work on focusing that tone with the lavenders and yellows to pull back some of that tree line. And I want to formally apologize right now. I don't know why my white balance to my camera was so freaking intense, but all I'm doing is stippling and carrying with like a fan-like motion and sweeping the white, yellow, and lavender through to make the riverbed reflex. And I'm also going back in with a dark teal to kind of intensify the edges of the skyline, even though you don't end up seeing that in the finished piece. But I just kind of did that to make the landscape kind of look more ever-encompassing. Once again, the white balance on this segment is awful, and I'm so sorry. I promise it gets more visible, but in the meantime we do have our little side photo off to the corner so you can see what two facets we were working on in this little blurred white space. I'm sorry. For the next segment, we're finally going to focus on the main point of our landscape, which is this beautiful pastel rainbow at the center. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and zoom in and start to focus. I went ahead and pastelified all of my rainbow colors. So I have pink, lavender, light blue, lime green, and a very mild yellow that ended up not really showing up. And I'm still taking that same very, very round brush, flattening it out. This time I'm going in my rainbow colors, so I'm stippling that through, and I'm bringing it through in almost a half lowercase n shape, if you will, and cascading that down the center of each landscape, trying to keep each rainbow bridge very, very similar in shape and structure as we go. I'm not really adding any cartoony like finishing clouds. I wanted to keep the rainbow kind of behind the tree line, so I had to tuck it in ever so slightly and blend that back in with a little bit more of our leaf and tree color just to blend that back. But I'm going to continue to start to layer those colors. I think I did about 3 layers total per color, and I slowly let each layer dry and build as we did so. After letting our landscapes dry, they look a little something like this, but you may notice they're not quite eye ready. We do need to add the white scaleras of the Lafufu eyes, which kind of look something like this for the normal Labubus. That being said, I am going to kind of take artistic liberties and start to kind of sketch out where I'm going to want to blank out and add the opaque white. I'm just using my Artist Loft titanium white acrylic paint to do so. This took about 3 layers as well, and a lot of drying in between said layers. After that, I decided I was going to go ahead and start to paint in the teeth of the Lafufu, and I decided to do that in white. Since I anticipated wanting some rainbow teeth, I just wanted to have a solid, more opaque base to do so. After that, because I was letting the eyes dry, the eyes finally dried by the time I finished the mouth, I went back in and I decided I wanted to add a glitter element because it wouldn't be a faded alien project without some glitter. So I decided I was going to put white glitter into all of the areas where we added the white eye marks, including the eye shine. So I went ahead and took a layer of Mod Podge to apply that, and then later shook off the remnant glitter. After letting all 4 eyes dry, you get a little something like this. I know that our landscape is greatly decreased, but it still looks beautiful. That being said, we're going to go ahead and attach our Mod Podge resin eye caps so that they are protected before we add them to our Labubu.
Eyes onto this guy and do his face up.
After picking my favorite 2 pairs, it's time to cut them out and place them into our Lafufu using the blow dryer method to put them back in. Please be careful with the blow dryer method. The vinyl does heat up very quickly and you only need about 10 seconds of heat to pop each eye in. So be mindful of how quickly the vinyl can heat up. Yay! Now that he has eyes, we can go ahead and continue our LAFUFU face up. So I've already went ahead and wrapped up our fur to protect it from our face up. I wanted to start with the blush, keeping it very, very similar to the actual Secret Labubu. I really like that corally shade to kind of call back in all those pastel shades. So after that, I needed to cover the eyes. So I actually cut out the other eyes that we didn't use for the face up, and I traced around those, cut a napkin, and used that to protect the eyes that are currently in the face before proceeding with the rest of the LAFUFU face up. This is what our LAFUFU currently looks like. If you can hear scrapping in the back, it's because I have a cat. I'm so sorry. But now we're gonna focus on the nails. For the nails, I typically like to go in to press-on nails, and I like to cut those in half and then split those into quarters. I'm using a older LAFUFU that I had some nails that I made on, and I'm kind of using that as a reference point for the shape and size of the nails, and I'm taking those and then dremeling those out to round them and almost give them a coffin kind of mini nail shape before painting those in black. I did want to have black as kind of a tie-in element to the snoot at the center for later on, and I also wanted to give it a little iridescent touch. So to do that, I actually have some holographic tape, and I'm going to start to implement that onto the nail bed. Before placing the tape down, I am going to put all of our nails on a little sticky pad. You might notice us kind of going through some random animal photos, and that is because I am talking actively on my Twitch stream as we do so. If you want to see any projects that we're doing live, I highly recommend coming through to our Twitch. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday for our activities. We're always working on something new and different over there, so I highly recommend coming through for a fun time. That being said, we are getting back into our tape, so I'm laying these down into tiny little squares, and then I'm going to take my scissors and try to very, very carefully cut around the excess iridescent bits. That being said, I am using the adherent side of the sticky tape to kind of stick it to the nails. I did paint all of the nails black to help better adhere that, but carefully cutting around the nail beds, and then I'm going to go through later and swipe some clear coat on that just to give it a final sealing coat before applying it to our LAFUFU's hands with super glue. It's going to be a bit of a hard detail to see later, so I wanted to show you while it was still on the pan. Getting back into the face up, it's time for the teeth. That being said, I decided I'm going to go ahead and coat the bases to be a little more solid and give them more of that pastel base. So I started to mix my pastel colors, being my pink, my lavender, my yellow, my green, and my blue, before I decided to put a little bit more of a faded alien glittery twist. We already have our eyes very glittered, but I wanted to do the same thing with the teeth. This was a very repetitive process, and I used about 2 coats per tooth to give it more of a solid base before going in with my Mod Podge once again and my loose glitter to fill that in. But in between that, I did decide, just because it's repetitive, to fill in the snoot and give that a solid black acrylic nose before continuing with the smile line and the rest of the dental. I wanted to do the smile line very, very last because the glitter is going to be super messy, and it is a lot of applying the glue, glitter, waiting for that to dry, knocking off the segmented or loose glitter, and then continuing section by section, and doing that with our repetitive colors as well. So having 2 blue teeth, 2 purple teeth, so on and so forth, and then focusing more on my individualistic colors just to minimize any glitter spray mess or chaos. Putting on the smile line, I did that with acrylic black paint, and then with the eyelashes, I went in with acrylic black paint as well. Decided I didn't really like that later, and I tinted it with a little bit of silver in between doing the glitter process with the teeth, just because it is very repetitive and you can get a lot more done with the face up if you focus on different aspects throughout your piece.
Now we're just gonna set spray him and then be able to replushify him. The belly, pretty good amount of stuffing.
Using a previous LAFUFU for stuffing inspiration, I decided that the Special ID LAFUFU was kind of misstuffed or not enough plush, so I went in with my polyfill fiber and I used a small incision with my scissors, cut him open, and started to place very carefully with my polyfill around the head, because he does have a little surprise that I'll reveal at the end with him that comes with a really, really fun feature. But I started to plush the stomach, the legs, and the head. I left the arms alone because they were stuffed pretty well. I just wanted to give give him some firmer areas, some more roundness, and hopefully make him stand up a little more independently. When we first got him out of box, his legs were very curled in, and his legs are really like kind of kicking out, like he's doing an Irish jig, if you will, and his arm is sewn upside down, but I love it because it kind of looks like he's serving looks later, so I'll show you that in a bit. But I just restuffed those areas to give it a little bit more dexterity and shape. After I'm happy with the amount of stuffing, I then go in with my sewing needle and my thread, and I close those micro little incisions with tiny little stitches and then call it done. You're able to then brush the fluff and you're not able to see the incisions at all, so it looks super seamless. I'm very happy with how it looks. Now it's time to apply our lovely little mini manicured nail set, so I'm going to use my super glue, adding very minuscule drops and using that to gently apply the nails. This is a segment that takes a lot of time and patience, so don't rush yourself and be very careful not to get any glue or chemicals on your hands. That being said, I did decide to redo his toenails because they weren't exactly lined up to the foot, so I removed the old factory paint with more acetone and then did the toenails over in some black nail polish here. I won't take you through the entire process, so it is sped a little bit forward. Now we are ready to kind of reflect and discuss this piece. It had me thinking a lot about general size and how art doesn't really need a huge canvas to be itself. And with a project like this, it really goes to show that really anything can become a work of art, no matter how great or small. I found that even using something the size of 1-inch little circular canvas to create a huge, detailed, lovely landscape into a beautiful eye, and creating all of these tie-in elements to really elevate and just accentuate the landscape that we've placed within the cornea of this lafufu, all came together for a beautiful completed look. Guys, here she is. She is absolutely freaking stunning. I love every single detail, especially with the eyes. The eyes were the main focus of this piece, and I think we nailed it. Look at those details. I love the rainbow. The reflex of the glitter really bring out the pastel implements in the landscape as well as the teeth. I feel like this is just a completely revamped little special lafufu, and I could not be more completely in love with it. I did also mention that we do have a surprise at the end of the video, so I am gonna go ahead and attach this here.
Hi, hello, and a little bit of faded alien bonus footage. We have Gizmo coming out of the cabinet and a really cool surprise. So as y'all know, we've been customizing lafufus now for a little bit of time. I'll show you the B-roll after Gizmo says hi. We have been working on these for quite a while and have been having so much fun, and I guess the trend is kind of over now. But that being said, I'm kind of excited because I'm the type of person to wait until post Valentine's for like chocolate sales day and stuff. So that being said, Labubus finally became affordable. We got one. I'm hoping for purple, as y'all know. We have been wanting purple for a long time. I haven't opened it yet. I've only like open the top of it. We've been hoping for purple forever, but this is our first real Labubu, so I'm gonna be happy with whatever color we get. That being said, I have no idea what color this is. I'm really hoping for purple. I'm really hoping for purple. What color is it, Gizmo? No freaking way! I've wanted this one forever, you guys. Oh my god, she's so beautiful. That means our search is officially over with the official, like, real Labubu. What a way to end the series. You guys, she's so pretty. I think this is the best way we could have ended our Labubu journey. So lucky. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to see what I'm doing when we're not crafting, I have our
Twitch at Faded Alien, and I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday for our activities, being sculpting, painting, and all of our things in between, as well as our Thursday festivities, which is more of our cryptid corner and our dino deep dives. I highly implore you to come through if that at all intrigues you, and our Saturday shenanigans, where we hang out with the pets and really do whatever I feel like. That being said, I do have a goal for 2026 of trying to reach Twitch affiliate, so it would mean so much to me if you guys would come through and check out the channel. If you want to take home any of the Faded Alien merch that you might see through any of our crafts, I do have a fourth wall for all of our wearable merch, so all of our t-shirts as well as totes and hoodies. I also have a Printful for all of our posters and our canvases, so more of our home decor type of merch, and all of your support means the world. Thank you so much for your patience, you guys, as I start to pour out these videos. It does take a bit of time for me to produce these videos. It does take me a minute and a half to edit. I'm starting to get in a little bit of a better swing of it, but I do apologize for being a little bit late with the videos. But that being said, thank you so much for hanging out, you guys. Every comment, every interaction with the channel means so much. So if you've learned anything, or if you've enjoyed this video at all, liking, following, commenting, and interacting with the channel in any way helps out so much. I cannot wait to see what project we get into next. I will see you very soon. Remember to stay safe, stay positive, and stay creative. Bye.